Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.
The autumn air hung heavy with grief as mourners gathered at the church, their faces etched with sorrow. Monica Quartermain's funeral was a somber affair, the weight of her loss pressing down on everyone in Port Charles. The pews were filled with familiar faces, friends, family, and colleagues who had come to pay their respects to a woman who had been a pillar of the community, a brilliant doctor, and a fierce matriarch. Jason Morgan stood near the front, his stoic exterior barely concealing the storm of emotions within. He had loved Monica like a mother, and her sudden passing had left a void he couldn't quite comprehend. The service was drawing to a close, the priest's words fading into a gentle hum, when the heavy wooden doors at the back of the church creaked open. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as all eyes turned toward the figure standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the pale light filtering through the stained glass windows. It was Robin Scorpio Drake, alive, unmistakable, and utterly impossible. Jason's heart stopped. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, his mind racing to make sense of what he was seeing. Robin had died years ago in an explosion at General Hospital, her death a devastating blow to everyone who knew her. Yet here she was, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes wide with a mix of determination and fear. The room fell silent, the air thick with shock and disbelief. Robin? Patrick Drake, her former husband, was the first to speak, his voice trembling as he rose from his seat. Emma, their daughter, clutched his hand, her eyes wide with confusion. How is this possible? Robin's gaze flickered to Patrick, then to Emma, before settling on Jason. She took a tentative step forward, her presence commanding the room. I know this is a shock, she said, her voice steady but laced with urgency. But I'm here because I have to tell you something. Something Monica knew. Something she died trying to protect. The mourners erupted into whispers, their shock giving way to curiosity and suspicion. Jason stepped forward, his piercing blue eyes locked on Robin. What are you talking about? He demanded, his voice low and controlled, but carrying the weight of a man who had seen too many betrayals. You've been gone for years. We buried you. Robin swallowed hard, her hands trembling slightly as she clasped them in front of her. I didn't die in that explosion, she said. I was taken. By someone who wanted to use me, my skills, my knowledge. Monica found out, and she was helping me, until she was silenced. The word silenced hung in the air like a guillotine. The implication was clear, Monica's death was no accident. The mourners shifted uncomfortably, their grief now tinged with unease. Carly Corinthos, standing beside Jason, grabbed his arm, her nails digging into his sleeve. What the hell is going on, Jason? She whispered fiercely. But Jason's focus remained on Robin. Who took you? He asked, his voice like steel. And what did Monica know? Robin glanced around the room, her eyes scanning the faces of those she once called friends. Some looked at her with hope, others with suspicion. She took a deep breath, knowing the truth would change everything. It was Helena Cassadine, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. She faked my death and held me captive for years. She wanted me to work on a project, a biological weapon. I refused, but she wouldn't let me go. Monica found out about it through her connections at the hospital. She was gathering evidence to expose Helena, to bring me home. But Helena found out, and... Robin's voice broke, and she looked down, unable to continue. The room was silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Helena Cassadine, the infamous matriarch of the Cassadine family, had been a shadow over Port Charles for decades. Even after her supposed death, her influence lingered, her schemes unraveling like threads from a dark tapestry. Jason's mind raced. Helena was a name that carried destruction in its wake, and if what Robin said was true, Monica's death was only the beginning. Why didn't you come back sooner? He asked, his tone sharp. Why now? Robin met his gaze, her eyes filled with guilt. I couldn't. Helena had me under constant surveillance. It wasn't until recently that I managed to escape. I came as soon as I could, but I was too late to save Monica. I owe it to her to finish what she started. Patrick stepped forward, his face a mix of anguish and anger. "You've been alive this whole time, and you didn't tell me? You didn't tell Emma?" His voice cracked as he gestured toward their daughter, who was now clinging to Elizabeth Weber, tears streaming down her face. "I wanted to," Robin said, her voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea how much I wanted to come back to you, to Emma. But if I had tried, Helena would have killed you both. I had to protect you." The room was a powder keg of emotions, grief, betrayal, confusion, and anger all colliding. Sam McCall, standing near the back, crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing as she studied Robin. "So what's this secret?" she asked, her voice cutting through the tension. "What did Monica know that was worth killing her for?" Robin hesitated, her gaze flickering to Jason again. She knew the truth would hit him hardest of all. "It's about you, Jason," she said softly. "Helena wasn't just after me. She was after you, too. She had plans for you, plans that Monica uncovered. She was trying to protect you." Jason's jaw tightened, his mind flashing back to the countless times Helena had manipulated his life. "What plans?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Robin took a step closer, her voice steady now. "Helena was working on a way to control you, to bring back the Jason she could manipulate, the Jason from before, the one who didn't question orders. She was using my research, my knowledge of neurology, to develop a serum that could alter your memories, your personality. Monica found out about it and was trying to stop her. She had evidence, documents, recordings, that could have exposed Helena's entire operation." The revelation hit Jason like a freight train. His memories, his identity, had been tampered with before, and the thought of Helena trying to strip away who he was again made his blood run cold. "Where's the evidence now?" he asked, his voice tight. Robin shook her head. "I don't know. Monica hid it somewhere safe, somewhere only she knew about. But I know it's here, in Port Charles. We have to find it before Helena's people do." The mourners erupted into chaos, voices overlapping as they demanded answers. Sonny Corinthos, standing near Carly, stepped forward, his presence commanding silence. "If Helena's behind this, we need to move fast," he said, his eyes locked on Jason. "We can't let her people get their hands on that evidence." Jason nodded, his mind already working through the next steps. Monica had always been one step ahead, a strategist who knew how to protect those she loved. If she had hidden evidence, it would be in a place only someone close to her could find. "We start at the Quartermain mansion," he said, his voice firm. "If Monica hid something, that's where it'll be." Robin nodded, relief flickering across her face. "I'll help you. I owe her that much." Patrick, still reeling from Robin's return, shook his head. "This is insane," he muttered, but there was no denying the determination in his eyes. "I'm in, too. For Monica. For Emma." As the mourners began to disperse, their grief now overshadowed by the weight of Robin's revelation, Jason felt a familiar fire ignite within him. Monica had died protecting him, protecting them all. He wouldn't let her sacrifice be in vain. With Robin by his side, he would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The Quartermain mansion loomed large in the twilight, its sprawling grounds eerily silent as Jason, Robin, and a small group of trusted allies, Carly, Sonny, Sam, and Patrick, arrived. The air was thick with tension, each of them hyper-aware that Helena's operatives could be watching. The mansion, once a place of warmth and family, now felt like a labyrinth of secrets waiting to be uncovered. "Where do we start?" Carly asked, her voice low as they stepped into the grand foyer. The portraits of Quartermain ancestors stared down at them, their eyes seeming to follow their every move. "Monica's study," Jason said without hesitation. "She spent most of her time there. If she hid something, that's where it'll be." The group moved quickly, their footsteps echoing on the polished hardwood floors. Monica's study was a sanctuary of books, medical journals, and personal mementos, a reflection of the woman who had balanced her career with her fierce love for her family. Jason's eyes scanned the room, taking in the familiar desk, the leather-bound notebooks, the framed photos of Alan, AJ, and himself. The weight of her absence hit him again, but he pushed it aside. There was no time for grief now. Robin began searching the desk, her hands moving with the precision of a surgeon. She would have hidden it somewhere subtle, she said, her voice focused. Monica was too smart to leave it in plain sight. Sam, ever the investigator, started tapping the walls, listening for hollow spots. She might have used a safe or a hidden compartment, she suggested. Monica was old school. She liked tangible things, paper, not digital. Sonny, standing by the door, kept watch, his hand resting on the gun tucked beneath his jacket. We need to be quick, he said. If Helena's people are after this, they won't be far behind. As they searched, Patrick lingered near the doorway, his eyes fixed on Robin. The pain of her absence, followed by the shock of her return, was still raw. How did you survive? He asked quietly, unable to hold back the question any longer. The explosion, we saw the footage. There was no way anyone could have walked away from that. Robin paused, her hands hovering over a stack of files. It was staged, she admitted. Helena's people pulled me out at the last second. They made it look like I died to keep anyone from looking for me. I was taken to a facility, somewhere remote. I don't even know where it was. They kept me locked away, forced me to work on their projects. Every day, I thought about you and Emma, about how to get back to you. Patrick's jaw tightened, his emotions a tangled mess of relief and betrayal. And Monica knew? Robin nodded. She started piecing it together a few years ago. She found discrepancies in the hospital's records, shipments of medical supplies that didn't add up. She tracked them to a shell company tied to Helena. When she confronted me, through a secure channel I managed to set up, she promised to get me out. But then... Her voice trailed off, and Jason's eyes narrowed. Then she was killed, he finished, his tone hard. Helena's people got to her first. Robin nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I think she was close to exposing them. Too close. A sudden thud from the hallway snapped everyone to attention. Sonny drew his gun, motioning for the others to stay quiet. Jason moved to the door, his own weapon at the ready, his senses on high alert. The mansion was supposed to be empty, but the sound suggested otherwise. Stay here, Jason whispered to the group, then slipped into the hallway, Sonny close behind. The corridor was dark, the only light coming from the moonlight streaming through the windows. Jason's eyes scanned the shadows, his instincts screaming that they weren't alone. A figure moved at the far end of the hall, too quick to identify. Jason gave chase, his boots silent on the carpet as he followed the intruder. The figure darted into the library, and Jason burst in after them only to find the room empty. Bookshelves lined the walls, and a large fireplace dominated the far end, but there was no sign of the intruder. Sonny joined him, his gun still drawn. You see anything? Jason shook his head, his eyes narrowing. They're here. I can feel it. Back in the study, Robin's hands trembled as she opened a locked drawer in Monica's desk, using a paperclip she'd bent into a makeshift lockpick. Inside was a small, leather-bound journal, its pages filled with Monica's neat handwriting. I think I found something, she called out, her voice urgent. The group gathered around as she flipped through the pages. The journal was a mix of personal notes and cryptic entries, dates, names, and locations that didn't immediately make sense. But one word stood out, written in bold and underlined, Cassadine. This is it, Robin said, her voice trembling with excitement. This is what Monica was working on. It's a record of everything she found, shipments, contacts, even coordinates to a facility. Sam leaned over, scanning the pages. These coordinates, they're not far from Port Charles. An old warehouse district, maybe? Jason took the journal, his eyes narrowing as he read the entries. We need to check this out. Tonight. Carly grabbed his arm, her voice fierce. Jason, if Helena's people are watching, they'll know we found this. We're walking into a trap. Jason met her gaze, his expression unyielding. If it's a trap, we'll deal with it. Monica died for this. We're not letting it go. The group moved quickly, piling into 2 cars and heading for the warehouse district. The coordinates led them to an abandoned building on the outskirts of town, its windows boarded up and its walls covered in graffiti. The air was thick with the scent of rust and decay, and the silence was unnerving. Jason signaled for the group to split up, with Sunny and Sam taking the perimeter while he, Robin, and Patrick entered the warehouse. Inside, the space was vast and shadowy, filled with crates and rusted machinery. The faint hum of electricity suggested the building wasn't as abandoned as it seemed. Robin clutched the journal, her eyes scanning the darkness. "This has to be it," she whispered. Helena's people would have used a place like this, out of sight, but close enough to keep an eye on Port Charles. Patrick stayed close to her, his protective instincts kicking in despite the years of distance between them. "Stay sharp," he said, his voice low. "We don't know what we're walking into." As they moved deeper into the warehouse, Jason's senses were on high alert. Every creak, every shadow, could be a threat. He motioned for Robin and Patrick to stay behind a stack of crates while he scouted ahead. That's when he saw it, a faint glow coming from a door at the far end of the warehouse. He approached cautiously, his gun drawn. The door was slightly ajar, and inside was a small room filled with computer monitors and medical equipment. It looked like a makeshift lab, the kind Robin had described. On one of the monitors, a video feed showed the exterior of the warehouse, where Sunny and Sam were still patrolling. "They've been watching us," Jason muttered, his jaw tightening. He turned to call for Robin, but before he could, the door slammed shut behind him, and the room filled with the hiss of gas. "Jason!" Robin's voice came from the other side of the door, frantic as she and Patrick pounded on it. But the gas was already taking effect, clouding Jason's vision and weakening his limbs. He stumbled, his gun slipping from his hand as he fell to his knees. The last thing he saw before everything went black was a figure stepping out of the shadows, a woman with cold, calculating eyes. Helena Cassadine. When Jason came to, he was strapped to a chair in the same room, his wrists and ankles bound with heavy restraints. Helena stood before him, her presence as commanding and terrifying as ever. Her silver hair was pulled back, and her lips curled into a smug smile. "Welcome back, Jason," she said, her voice dripping with malice. "You've been a difficult man to pin down, but I always get what I want in the end." Jason's head throbbed, but his mind was sharp. "What do you want with me?" he growled, struggling against the restraints. Helena tilted her head, studying him like a predator sizing up its prey. "You're the key to everything, my dear. Your strength, your loyalty, your malleability. With Robin's serum, I can make you into the perfect weapon. No questions, no resistance. Just obedience." Jason's blood ran cold. "You're insane if you think I'll let you do this." Helena laughed, a chilling sound that echoed in the small room. "Oh, Jason. You don't have a choice. Monica tried to stop me, and look where that got her. But don't worry, I'll make sure your friends join her soon enough." Outside, Robin and Patrick were frantically trying to break into the room, but the door was reinforced, and their efforts were futile. Sunny and Sam had rejoined them, their faces grim as they realized the trap they'd walked into. "We need to get him out of there," Sam said, her voice tight with urgency. "If Helena's here, she's not working alone." Sunny nodded, his eyes scanning the warehouse. "We need a plan. Fast." Robin clutched the journal, her mind racing. "There's something in here," she said, flipping through the pages. Monica mentioned a failsafe, a way to shut down Helena's operation. She said it was tied to the hospital, to the research wing. Patrick's eyes lit up. The hospital. That's where Monica spent most of her time. If she hid something, it could be there. Sam nodded. "Then we split up. Sunny and I will stay here, try to get to Jason. You two head to the hospital and find that failsafe." Robin hesitated, her eyes flickering to the door where Jason was trapped. "We can't leave him." "You're the only one who knows what to look for," Sam said firmly. "Go. We'll handle this." Reluctantly, Robin and Patrick agreed, slipping out of the warehouse and heading for General Hospital. The hospital was quiet at this hour, its halls dimly lit and eerily silent. They moved quickly, heading for the research wing where Monica had spent countless hours. In Monica's office, they found a hidden panel behind a bookshelf, just as the journal described. Inside was a flash drive, labeled simply HC. Robin's hands trembled as she plugged it into a computer, revealing a trove of documents, shipping manifests, financial records, and detailed plans for Helena's biological weapon. There was also a video file, Monica's face appearing on the screen. "If you're watching this," Monica's voice said, steady but urgent, "it means I'm gone. But you need to know the truth. Helena Cassadine is alive, and she's planning something terrible. The evidence on this drive can stop her, but you have to act fast. There's a kill switch, a code embedded in the hospital's mainframe that can disable her network. The access point is in the server room. Use it." The video cut off, and Robin's heart raced. "The server room," she said, turning to Patrick. "We need to get there now." Back at the warehouse, Sunny and Sam were working to breach the room where Jason was being held. They'd found a weak point in the wall, and Sunny was using a crowbar to pry it open. Inside, Helena was preparing to inject Jason with the serum, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "You'll thank me for this one day," she said, raising the syringe. But before she could administer the dose, an alarm blared through the warehouse, the lights flickering as the system began to shut down. Helena's face twisted with rage as she realized what was happening. "No!" she screamed, turning to the monitors, which were now displaying error messages. At the hospital, Robin and Patrick had reached the server room and entered the code from Monica's drive. The system was shutting down Helena's network, cutting off her access to the resources she needed to carry out her plan. Back at the warehouse, the distraction gave Sunny and Sam the opening they needed. They burst into the room, taking out Helena's guards in a flurry of gunfire. Jason, still groggy from the gas, managed to break free of his restraints, tackling Helena before she could escape. "You're done," he growled, pinning her to the ground. Helena laughed, even as she was restrained. "You think this is over? My family's reach is endless. You'll never be free of us." But for now, the threat was contained. The group reunited at the hospital, the evidence on Monica's drive enough to dismantle Helena's operation and ensure her arrest. Robin's return, though painful for those who had mourned her, brought a glimmer of hope to Port Charles. As they stood in Monica's office, the weight of her loss settled over them once more. But her legacy, the truth she'd fought to protect, lived on in them. Jason looked at Robin, a silent understanding passing between them. They had lost so much, but they would carry on, for Monica, for each other, and for the future of Port Charles. The chapel was draped in sorrow, the soft glow of candles flickering against the stained glass windows that painted the room in muted shades of blue and gold. Monica Quartermain's funeral had drawn nearly everyone in Port Charles, from family and friends to people who had been touched by her compassion as a doctor and matriarch. The atmosphere was heavy, each sob and whisper echoing through the silence that blanketed the crowd. Jason Morgan sat near the front, his usually stoic expression betraying the grief he rarely allowed anyone to see. Monica had been more than a mother to him, she had been his anchor even when his life veered into danger and violence. The loss carved a hollow space inside him that no one could fill. His hands were clasped tightly, his head bowed, and though he appeared calm, inside he felt as though a storm was ripping through him, each gust of pain more relentless than the last. The service moved forward with words of remembrance, heartfelt speeches from Ned, Tracy, and even Brooke Lynn, each recounting Monica's strength, her stubbornness, and her enduring love for her family. Michael dabbed at his eyes as he listened, torn between his memories of Monica as a grandmother and his sadness at watching his family fracture once more. Carly sat nearby with Donna and Jocelyn, her hand resting gently on Sunny's. Even she seemed quieter than usual, her sharp edges softened by genuine sorrow. The Quartermain family had always been complicated, but in moments like this, their conflicts seemed to dissolve into a collective ache. As the priest prepared to give his final words, the heavy doors of the chapel creaked open. Heads turned, murmurs stirred, and Jason's heart skipped a beat as he lifted his eyes. There, standing in the doorway, was a figure no one expected to see, Robin Scorpio Drake. For a moment, time seemed to stop, the sight of her frozen in everyone's mind like a photograph. Robin had been gone from Port Charles for years, building her life with Patrick and Emma elsewhere, surfacing only on rare occasions. Her sudden return, especially at this funeral, sent shockwaves through the mourners. She wore black, her expression somber, but there was a determination in her gaze as her eyes locked on Jason. Jason rose instinctively, confusion flashing across his features. Memories surged. Robin had been one of the first people who saw past his stoicism when he became Jason Morgan, not Jason Quartermain. She had understood him when others couldn't. Their bond had been complicated, sometimes strained, but it had been real, and it had mattered. To see her here, out of nowhere, stirred something deep inside him that had long been buried. Robin walked slowly down the aisle, her heels clicking softly against the tile. Every step seemed heavier than the last, the weight of unspoken truths pressing down on her shoulders. She stopped just a few feet from Jason, her eyes glistening, her lips trembling as though the words she carried might shatter the air if she spoke them. The crowd watched in tense silence, whispers passing like ripples through water. Why was Robin here? Why had she returned now? Jason stepped forward, his voice quiet but sharp, cutting through the murmurs. Robin, what are you doing here? His tone wasn't angry, but wary, edged with the knowledge that whenever Robin appeared, it meant something important, something that couldn't wait. She swallowed hard, her gaze darting briefly to the casket at the front, then back to Jason. I came to pay my respects to Monica, she said, her voice breaking slightly. She meant a lot to me too. But there's something else, Jason. Something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you years ago. Jason frowned, the muscles in his jaw tightening as he braced himself. The room seemed to hold its breath, the funeral suddenly turning into something far more unpredictable. Robin's voice shook as she continued, but her determination never wavered. I didn't just come to say goodbye. I came because you deserve to know the truth. A truth I've carried for too long. Jason's eyes narrowed, searching her face, his mind already racing through possibilities. He knew Robin well enough to understand that she would never bring something like this up lightly, and certainly not in the middle of a funeral unless it was earth-shattering. Before she could go on, Tracy's sharp voice pierced the silence. What kind of circus is this? This is Monica's funeral, not the stage for old secrets and dramatics. She gestured with her hand, furious that Robin was shifting the focus away from Monica. But Robin stood her ground, her expression firm despite the tears threatening to spill. I know this isn't the right place, she admitted, but if I don't say it now, I don't think I ever will. And Jason deserves to hear it. Jason raised a hand slightly, silencing Tracy, his gaze never leaving Robin. Tell me, he said quietly, but there was steel in his tone. The chapel was so quiet that even the faint hum of the air conditioner seemed loud. Robin took a deep breath, her voice trembling as she finally released the words she had guarded for so long. Jason, you have a son. A son you don't know about. And he's mine too. Gasps echoed through the room, people twisting in their seats to look at one another, disbelief painted across their faces. Carly's eyes widened, her hand flying to her mouth as she stared at Jason, then at Robin. Michael looked stunned, confusion flashing across his features, while Sonny leaned forward, his brow furrowed. Jason stood frozen, his entire world tilting on its axis as the words reverberated in his ears. For a moment, he thought he had misheard her, that grief and exhaustion had played tricks on his mind. But Robin's tear-filled eyes told him it was true. What are you talking about? Jason asked, his voice low, almost a whisper, as though he feared saying it louder would make it real. Robin's hands trembled as she clasped them in front of her, trying to summon the strength to continue. Years ago, after you left Port Charles, things happened. I made choices I didn't tell you about. I thought I was protecting everyone, but I see now that I was wrong. Jason, you have a son, and his name is Andrew. He's a teenager now. And he deserves to know his father. The chapel erupted with noise, gasps, whispers, and exclamations bouncing off the walls. Tracy looked appalled, Brooklyn's mouth dropped open, and Carly, who had weathered every storm with Jason, looked betrayed by Robin's revelation. Jason's heart pounded in his chest, his mind struggling to process the enormity of what he had just heard. Monica's funeral had already been painful, but this revelation cracked his world wide open. His entire life, his identity as a father, his choices, it all collided in a storm of confusion, grief, and disbelief. He could barely breathe, his throat tightening as he stared at Robin, searching for any sign that this was some kind of mistake. But deep down, he knew Robin would never lie about something like this.